What's up guys, my name is Julie and this is the Curated Curvy, where I bring you along for the journey as I attempt to create the curated wardrobe of my dreams with these two hands. And today I have for you all my very first episode of Can She DIY It? Today I am going to be taking this skirt from Loeffler Randall and I am going to be attempting to DIY it. Today's version of Can She DIY It will not be exact replica, as I do not currently have a pattern in my stash that would yield this exact skirt and I do not feel like drafting one. So my skirt will still be an A-line skirt, however it will have a button placket down the center because that is what my pattern stash has gifted me with. So for the pattern, I am going with McCalls M7981. I am going with View C. View C is an A-line skirt. It does go down to be much fuller at the bottom, but since I am cutting it off, it will stop a lot of that fullness from beginning to develop. I am keeping the button placket as is because I do not feel like doing crazy pattern hackings, and so we're going with that. Over here, I'm going to go over the modifications that I'm going to attempt to make to the skirt to get the look that we are going for. So the first thing that I am going to do is shorten the skirt by about 2 inches because as you can see, View C is not a true mini skirt. It's a shorter version, but it's not true mini, and we're going for mini. The next thing that I am going to do is eliminate the side pockets because the skirt that we are trying to recreate has 2 patch pockets on the front, which would bring me to the third thing that we need to do, which is draft a patch pocket and a ruffle to go along with the patch pocket. Those will be all for the modifications of the skirt. Last night I was in here and I went ahead and created those patch pocket pattern pieces, so all of the pieces are ready to go for the skirt. The next thing that we need to decide on is the fabrication. So I loved the color of the set from the inspiration picture, and originally I wasn't necessarily beholden to the exact color. Just so happens though that I have this corduroy fabric in my stash that was gifted to me by a friend of a friend quite some time ago. I haven't measured it yet, but it should definitely be enough to get an entire skirt pattern out of. This is a really thin cord, which kind of worries me a smidge because I haven't looked at the fabric composition, but I'll go ahead and post it up. But I think that it is a heavyweight linen, has a grain to it, and it holds its structure very well. So I'm not sure if this fabric would give me that structure because it is a pretty thin cord. So I don't know if you can see out of my window, but it's pretty dark and dreary outside today, which means that the light isn't giving. So you're gonna have to bear with me on these like really dim and moody tones. But I have the pattern pieces all cut out. So the next thing that I'm going to do is iron my fabric and then get it over to the cutting table and get all of my pattern pieces cut out so that we can begin sewing, my friends. So I have run into my first little snack here, which is the ruffle piece. So it's very apparent that the fabric I'm using is like a 45 wide, and my ruffle piece, or it can't even be a 45 wide. Okay, so it's only 17 inches on the fold wide, and my ruffle piece is 24. So the problem with that is that this is a cord fabric, and you know, with the cord fabric, or needle cord as my friends across the pond call it, there is a nap, and you need to continue to go in the direction of that nap for all of your pieces, unless you want to have like a different shadow effect, you know, so it'll look like it's 2 tones as opposed to 1 continuous tone. So I can either just cut this out as 4, or I can be lazy and just fold it over and cut it that way and just live with the fact that the light is going to hit the ruffle in the skirt differently. I don't know. I think I should probably just cut it out as 4. I didn't want to have a seam in it, but I can use that seam as like my center placement to make sure that the gathers are even on both sides. So maybe that'll work out. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut the ruffle piece out as 4. Yeah. So in real time, it's been about 45 minutes since I finished cutting out the skirt. I went and had lunch, made myself a nice cup of coffee, and now I am going to get to sewing. However, there is one little snafu, and that is that on the inspiration picture, the edges of the ruffle look like it's like a satin stitch, which I know I could achieve on my serger, but I don't have the serger thread that matches the fabric. So I'll be thinking as I'm sewing what I can do about that, or to achieve that, if I want to just attempt to do a narrow hem, if I just want to serge it and fold it over. I don't know. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start constructing the skirt. Now, I have sewn this skirt before, so I don't really need the instructions. It's not that difficult. Basically, the first thing that you're going to do is join the center back seam, and then you'll join the side seams, and then I'm going to serge all of those, and then I believe I will go ahead and hem it and then put on the button placket. So it's not very difficult. It's a really easy skirt to put together, especially since I'm eliminating the side pockets. The trickiest thing about it is going to be those patch pockets, and so when that comes around, we'll talk about it and we'll figure out what to do about that. I've gone ahead and I have attached all of the skirt pieces, and as per usual with this pattern, it is too big for me. So I don't know if you can see, but this is the skirt wrapped around my waist. Now remember, there's a separate button placket that needs to be attached, and there's still overlap. This overlap really shouldn't be, it's not good. I'm gonna take extra fabric out of the seams. So I'm gonna go back through the seams. I took out 3 1/7 inch for seam allowance this time, or excuse me, 1/2 inch. I am going to go and do 5 1/7 inch and see if that pulls it in just a little bit more to get closer to what I'm trying to fit. And I'll take it in slowly in increments that way, because I don't wanna rush and take out too much. And then the problem that I forever have is I get hasty and I do too much, and then I have to like backtrack a very hard road back. So gonna take my time. I'm gonna go back in each seam allowance. I'm gonna do 5 1/7 inch, and I'm gonna see if that gives me a better fit, like prematurely, before I have to add on the button placket and the waistband. Okay, so I think that worked, and I think it fixed the problem that I was having. So when I put the skirt around my waist now, I am getting a snugger fit. I'm trying to keep in mind that there's going to be another 1/2 inch shaved off for the seam allowance once I add in the button placket. So I don't think I need to take off any more. So this is what it's like now. You see I'm having to kind of like pull it to get it to come together at the center. So much, much better. The 4 skirt panels have all been joined, are now attached, have been serged, have been top stitched. Those are good to go. So I was going to do the button placket, but I think before I do the button placket, I'm gonna go ahead and add on the patch pockets, because this is probably going to be one of the more time-consuming parts of the project. So the first thing I'm gonna do is fold the pocket flap over, wrong sides together, and then I am going to stitch my seam allowance just on the flap on both of those, and then I'm going to flip it over, but then I'm going to, using the same seam allowance, go all around the pocket using a basting stitch, and then I'll use that to pull in so that I can get all of these corners to fold in nicely. Okay, so basically what I've done is, as you can see, I have stitched down the top half of the pocket
in the seam allowance, and then I trimmed off the sides, and then I will turn it over like we have here. That way on the outside of the pocket you have a clean top edge, because on the inspiration picture there is no top stitching on the top of the pocket. Next, what I did was I took a gathering stitch all the way around the seam allowance of the pocket, and basically now I can pull on that gathering stitch as I'm doing here, and what it's going to do is it's going to create these folds here to make that easier to fold in. And then on this side, as you can see, I've gathered it, I let it fold in, and then I pressed it. So on the outside you get like that smooth round edge. So now I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of the pockets, and then I'll press them, and then we'll start working on the ruffle.
Okay, so I have been playing around with like different ways of trying to get the satin stitch but as an edge stitch, and it's just not working out for me. I've tried this, I've tried to get the satin stitch on it, tried different stitches. I like this scallop stitch here. My only thing is I guess I would have to cut that out. So I don't know how that would work. Actually, let me grab some scissors. Let's test it out and see. Yeah, no, that would drive me bonkers with the length of fabric I have to do. So what I have resolved is I'm just going to do a pretty narrow zigzag stitch along the edge, and it is going to kind of fray the edge out a little bit, but I think I can live with that. And then I'll go ahead and put in my gathering stitches and get them attached to the pockets. So let's do that. Guys, we are back at it, day 2 of Can She DIY It. Last night I did come in here and I did some finagling with the pocket, and I got that situated. So I'm going to show you that now, and then we'll go through the process of constructing the last pocket, or finish constructing it, because I feel like that's the most important piece of this make, is the pocket situation. So I'm going to show you the pocket that's already done. Then we'll put together the next pocket, get the pockets on there, get the button pocket, get the waistband, be done. Let's do this. Okay, you have to forgive where my table is, because this is the lighting that we were dealt. But this is the pocket all done. So I've gathered it, and then I've gone ahead and pinned it around. And I think what I'm gonna do is I am going to sew. So I'm gonna attach the ruffle to the pocket and the skirt at the same time, because in the inspiration picture it looks like there's only one stitch. So I'm gonna try and keep it that way. So yeah, that is done. Next thing I have to do now is this pocket. So I need to go ahead and I need to gather the band, the ruffle for it, and then we'll stitch it. I don't know if I showed you yesterday, but I did kind of get close to a satin stitch there. This light isn't helping me. But basically I just did a really thin zigzag stitch across the edge of this ruffle here, and then I went over it a second time. So I went all the way down and then down once again, and I feel like that gave me a nice finish on the edge of the ruffle that I'm pretty happy with. So like I said, now I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna sew 2 gathering stitches through this one. I'm gonna pull it together, and then I'm going to pin it to the pocket. Okay, so we have 2 pockets. And originally what I was going to do was just like attach the pocket at the 4 corners onto the original pattern piece and then stitch the ruffle and the pocket down as one. But I don't think I'm gonna do that, one, because it'd be really tricky trying to get all of these pins out once it's attached to the skirt. And also I don't want the ruffle to shift at all because I have it in the perfect position. So instead, what I am going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and baste the ruffle onto the pockets so that I can remove all of the pins, and then I'll pin that onto the skirt. And then I will attach the pockets to the skirt. Yeah. The pockets are attached and they're slanted, so that's fun. I had originally marked my pocket placement for what I thought would make it straight, and then when I was putting it on there like prematurely, it didn't look straight to me, so I slanted it, and hindsight is 20/20 because my original pocket placement was correct. But whatever. So the pockets are on, and I did go ahead and chop an extra inch off of the bottom just to make it a little more mini, because when I was fitting it around my waist prematurely, it was just looking a little too long, and I'm not going to take up that deep of a hem. I was thinking of using this binding that I made a while ago from a really cute fabric to finish it off, but I think that would take longer than just serging and folding up once. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and serge the entire hem and then fold it up once and stitch it down that way, because I would like to finish this today before I have to go pick up my son from school, and that is in about 2 hours. So yeah, the last time I made this skirt, there was also a lot of hand stitching, which I don't think I'm gonna do this time around, because again, I kind of want to finish this within like the next 2 hours. I definitely do not want this to drag on to tomorrow. So I'm gonna go ahead, like I said, and serge the hem of the dress and then fold it up once and stitch it down. And fingers crossed we can move on to the button placket after that. so close. So the button placket is on, the pockets are on, the skirt is hemmed. I did have to go in and make 2 darts in the back. They're about 1/4 of an inch on each side of the dart, so about 1.5 inches in total, just because the skirt doesn't fit me. This pattern is weird in that the large is the envelope only comes in 2 sizes, so large and extra large, but the large is too small for me and the extra large is too big for me. So I have to do a lot of kind of like fitting with it. So like I said, put two darts in the back. Now, literally, one of the last things is to add the waistband. Now I think, if I'm not mistaken, with the waistband, you sew it on first and then you fold it over, kind of like stitch up the side, and then you like hand tack it down. Definitely not gonna hand tack it down. Probably gonna try out my stitch in the ditch foot and see how that works out, because again, we are trying to finish today. Hey Siri, what time is it?
It's 12:35 p.m.
Okay, so it's 12:35. So there's hope that this can be done by the time I have to go get my son. Last thing, like I said, or not the last thing, but the next thing is the waistband. So I'm gonna go ahead, sew the waistband on, and yeah, let's do this. Okay, so the waistband is attached. Now we have to finish off the waistband. So basically, what you're gonna do, the reason for the overhang is you are going to fold it down like this. And then at your machine, you're going to stitch down that excess, and then you'll be able to flip that over and have a nice clean folded edge there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And oh yeah, also, wait, how are we doing this? Okay, I'm tripping. I know I was forgetting something. So this actually needs to, so annoying. This needs to be folded over and pressed about 5/8 or 1/2 inch or 3/8, whatever your seam allowance is. Fold this over and press it down, because that way when you finish it, that edge is gonna be folded. So now I gotta go back to the iron, fold this over and just press it. I'm not gonna measure it, I'm just gonna eyeball it, cause bug life. Are we recording? Okay, good. So now that that's done, again, you are going to fold this like this, making sure your edges are pressed nice together. Then you're going to stitch along that seam right there. So let's do that. Now, I'm gonna trim this obviously, but I'm just showing you. So once you trim it, you should be able to fold it over like that. And then you'll have a nice finished edge on the outside. So I'll trim it and I'll press it and I'll do all that. Then I'll do the other side. So this is the stitch in the ditch foot. This actually came with one of my machines. And basically you see the divot in there. Your needle goes right up against that divot. And then here you can see it has a plate underneath. And so this plate, the line of the plate should be on your seam. And then as you stitch, it will stitch a needle, it will create a stitch that is perfectly on the seam. So let me show you what it looks like. So this is the waistband. And as you can see, I mean, it's not perfect. I can see it, but it's pretty dang good. Pretty dang good. And that, as opposed to having to go in and by hand stitch the inside down, has saved me a lot of time. All right, guys, it is button time. We have attached the waistband. We have added the pockets. We have a button placket. We are hemmed. All we have to do is make some buttonholes and add some buttons. Guys, I just finished my buttonholes. Look how much thread I have left.
gosh, guys. Like, how stinking cute is this? I am obsessed. Like, everything is so perfect. The length is perfect. The patch pockets, perfection. Like, are we obsessed or are we obsessed?
Alright guys, and that is it. What do you think? I'm pretty ecstatic with how it came out, honestly. I think the pockets are absolutely perfect. Initially, I felt like they were a little too big, but looking back at the inspiration picture, I feel like they're pretty spot on. Again, it's not an exact replica of the skirt, but I feel like this is a testament to using what you have in your stash to get what you want. Anyways, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, stay beautiful, make great things. Let me know what you think in the comments. Bye!